Sales Rep Radio.
Hi, everybody. This is Dan Walker, and this is Sales Rep Radio, a presentation of timeless sales tips and best practices from some of the world's most talented sales consultants. It's news from your world, and it starts right now.
Hot tips, Sales Rep Radio.
With all the technology and social media we have at our fingertips, it only makes sense that connecting with our customers and prospects and blowing out our numbers is a piece of cake, right? Think again. As it turns out, all that tech, in combination with some very well-known knee-jerk emotions, can be holding you back. Jeb Blount is a very busy speaker, heads up the sales consultancy Sales Gravy. He's the author of some great books on sales excellence, including his latest, 90 Days to Level Up Your Sales Skills. The book we want to focus on this time around, though, is Sales EQ. He's standing by with some terrific insight for us. Jeb, welcome into Sales Rep Radio.
Well, thank you for having me, Dan. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to getting on your show.
Well, frankly, Jeb, we wanted to grab you before you got too busy writing yet another blockbuster book. But with your book, Sales EQ, the focus is on building and maintaining real human connection with clients.
Yeah, Sales EQ, basically it fills in where the challenger sale and thin selling and insight selling and a lot of the modern sales processes have left off. And it fills the human relationship gap in selling. So what we're finding is that in the 21st century, the real differentiator for salespeople is their ability to create real human connections. And in fact, if you want to influence a buyer, you have to first connect with them. And sadly, we're in this perfect storm where buyers have more information than they've ever had before. Technology is accelerating the pace of change and creating a disruptive marketplace that leaves a lot of the buyers clinging to the status quo. They're afraid. Like, they wake up every day and they don't know that some 23-year-old kid is going to set up an app that's going to put them out of business. And in the middle of that, salespeople who have really earned their stripes by having a great pitch, knowing their product, having a good technology stack, and, being able to get control of the sales conversation are finding that those things aren't really working as well. And so companies, have recognized that buyers want more from salespeople than just a dissertation of the marketing brochures. So they've taught them how to challenge and to give insight and to teach and to go in and really just talk at these poor prospects. And that's not working either. Now, think about this. At the same time, you have an entire workforce who is coming out of college, and their ways of dealing with other human beings is to text them or to Snapchat them or to hit them up on Instagram. So even though these millennials are socially conscious, they really believe in humanity, they treat one-to-one human relationships in the abstract. So in this perfect storm, salespeople are struggling. And in a lot of companies, 50% or more of their salespeople are missing quota. But what I started noticing is that, because I'm a consultant and I work with sales teams all over the globe, is that there are a group of ultra-high performers, people that are like the top of their game, and they're doing something differently. And what they're doing is they're applying sales-specific emotional intelligence in the sales process. What they've discovered and what they know innately is that the experience of buying from them is way more important than anything they're selling and all the technology that they have to bring to bear to get the prospect to the table. It's that emotional experience, and they've got these amazing frameworks that they use along the way. And in the book, we talk about some of those frameworks, and we tell some specific stories about the things that they do inside the sales process. But it's incredible how much better they are. In some cases, we'll find these, ultra-high performers on sales teams that are like 300% better than everybody else, even though essentially, their talent level and the education level and the amount of training they have is the same. And so that's what Sales EQ is all about, is how these ultra-high performers, these ultra-high earners in sales are leveraging human relationships to change the game.
Yeah, that's really the key, Jeb. It's just too easy to jam up buyers' mailboxes with a ton of solicitations every day.
Every day. You wake up in the morning and you get these things. I got one in the middle of the night last night. So you realize, it's not a real person sending it, it's a robot. And you and I were talking about this on the pre-show. We were talking about how jaded we've gotten and cynical we've gotten about artificial intelligence and machine learning and robots companies are employing to reach out to prospects. It's really a tough thing right now because I get so many hits from robocalls and from, email every single day, and all the bots that are on the web that, I feel bad sometimes because I'm like, are you a real person? Are you a real human? And in fact, I know other people are doing that too, because I was responding to people on LinkedIn. I get a lot of LinkedIn requests. And I just basically was copying and pasting a thank you for people who were writing me. And I had 3 people write me back and say, are you really writing this? Or are you a robot? And I had to write them back and go, no, I'm a real person. It's Saturday afternoon. I'm watching basketball. But I can't write a personal letter to 700 people over and over and over again. But before AI, no one would have been thinking that. So you think about, you're walking into these sales relationships and you have prospects that are jaded. You have, all this account-based marketing now. So these poor buyers are just getting inundated by marketers who are using all this technology. And if you think about it, we're just starving for human contact. And I'll characterize the way you and I started our conversation this morning. We kind of got off to a rough start because, I was discombobulated because I got this book launched. And then it became warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer. And you realize how hungry you are for real human beings that have real personalities, that are authentic and that care and that treat you like you matter. You just can't discount that in today's world. And in fact, I believe that emotional intelligence and empathy in particular are the meta skills of sales for the 21st century.
What are the action steps for us, Jeb, to avoid pitfalls and begin fostering real relationships with customers and prospects?
Well, the most important thing for salespeople, and this is our Achilles heel in sales, is that we have these disruptive emotions that are inside of us. So in this human-human contact, in the sales process, your buyer has their emotions and you have your emotions. So the best place to start, and where these ultra-high performers in sales have begun to change the game, is that they're masters at managing their own emotions. So for me, when I start working with salespeople and I'm trying to get them to improve and up their game when it comes to emotional intelligence, the first place I start is helping them become aware of their own disruptive emotions, insecurity, fear, their need to feel important, their attachment to being accepted, their impatience. Once you understand those things, right, and you can create mechanisms, and that's what we do primarily in the book, is we teach salespeople these frameworks and mechanisms and systems that help them manage and control their own emotions. Because once you begin to control your own emotions, then you have the ability to influence the emotions of other people. And in fact, I will tell you that the person in the sales conversation who is in most control of their emotions will be most probable to get the outcome that they desire. So for me, if I'm giving advice on what to do first, the first thing is to sit down and get honest with yourself and be aware of the disruptive emotions in your life that are holding you back from influencing your buyers through the sales process.
And once you convince sales reps to grab hold of their emotions and get things under control, you've seen measurable improvements, Jeb?
Absolutely. A great story. We did a workshop a few weeks ago with a group, and one of the reps who'd been in sales for 20 years wrote me a note. We teach something called the self-disclosure loop, and that is how do you get your prospect talking and get them to start self-disclosing all of the things that you have to know in order to build your case that they should be doing business with you. And Chris wrote me a note and said, before I went to the workshop, I would have jumped in and argued with my client when they told me that my prices were too high. And one of the sort of the frameworks that you have to live on when you're a salesperson is understanding you can't argue a buyer into believing they're wrong. And so Chris, instead of arguing with the buyer, he asked the buyer a simple question: what do you like most about your current vendor? And it seems like a weird question to ask people, but the way the human mind works is when you ask someone to tell you what they like, they typically tell you what they don't like. So we asked him what they liked about their vendor. He said, my buyer spent 30 minutes talking about all the horrible things this vendor has done for them. And at the end of 30 minutes, with my mouth shut, my ears open, paying attention, giving her all my attention, she said, well, I just want to know how you can justify charging me so much more for your service. And he simply responded, because we don't treat our customers like that. And she signed the contract. And he said, before I learned emotional intelligence, to be patient, to manage my disruptive emotions, I would have argued myself out of that deal versus letting her argue herself into the deal. Those are the type of results that we see when people put emotional intelligence in place in their life. But again, I say sales-specific emotional intelligence because this is a different level of emotional intelligence in a commercial relationship than you would use if you were, say, a policeman or a teacher or a leader or a parent. So it's a little bit different. You've got to have some frameworks in place and some mechanisms in place that allow you to regulate and control your disruptive emotions in the sales process.
Lot to think about here, Jeb, and we thank you for your time. Anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, go buy the book. I mean, it's a great book. You'll love it. Connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on Twitter. I'm at SalesGravy. I'm at SalesGravy on Instagram. Connect with me on Facebook. But connect with me and let me know what you think.
Jeb Blount, the big cheese at SalesGravy and the author of Sales EQ. Keep up the great work, and thank you so much for joining us here on Sales Rep Radio.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dan.
And that's all the time we have for now, folks. Sales Rep Radio is a production of the Marcom Store, your source for strategic sales communications and training, e-learning, video, and corporate podcasts just like this one. This is Dan Walker. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, follow. You know, all the stuff. We'll see you again next time for another edition of Sales Rep Radio.